everyone thought it was just not worth working on because no one had made any money from maps. Like there were maps on the internet and everyone used a map site, but all the map sites were losing money and they're all the same, right? Then we came with something that was arguably much better. Like no one argued about that. But most people are like, yeah, but who cares? We cared. We set up in a friend's spare bedroom. We bought like the cheapest components and like assembled our own computers. You don't quite have to do that anymore, right? But like we tried to be like the scrappiest. We found a coffee shop where they trained baristas. And so there was these guys making coffee all day to learn, and then we got those coffees for free. Like, we never raised any money. This is why we sold to Google before we even launched, right? But we had managed to survive a year and a half with 4 people on the team without raising a single dollar. We did the whole development with 1 square mile of mapping data. I think the thing, like in Australia, the thing that's holding back Greece a little bit is a
This audience is full of tech builders. I can see some familiar faces. So thank you for being here. It's an honor to sit here and discuss in front of all those builders. And I would like to split this podcast session in 2 sections. First of all, I would like to see who was Lars back in his university years, because we have university students in front of us. Then we can also decode the very early days of Google Maps before the acquisition. And of course, we're going to speak about the Greek startup ecosystem and the next generation of unicorn founders. Philoxenia, yeah, of course, we're going to speak about Philoxenia. So, first of all, how was Lars back in the days? Were you a rebel? Were you an athlete, a nerd? Did you have any obsessions in your university years?
Yeah, I'm definitely a rebel. I spent a lot of time trying to overthrow the US government. Failed.
I want to know more about your university years, because we have people in front of us.
Yeah, you look more seriously. I was the kind of student who never showed up. Like this was possible. I don't know if this is still possible, but when I went to school, it's been a few years, the university only cared about passing exams. They couldn't care less about what you did during the year. And so even when I was an undergraduate back in Denmark, where I'm from, I just had a job. Like I was a paid programmer during the year, and then I'd like put my job on hold right before the exams and then bury myself in books and pass my exams and go back to work.
I think this is pretty common for Greek students. They always study and at the same time they're working. But what did you do in your free time? What did you do in your weekends? Were you building applications for
Wait, what, sorry? Free time? Free time?
No free time.
Yeah, what did I do? I mean, look, I have to admit I was kind of hooked on computers, right? So I started already when, in primary school, programming computers. Right. I'm sure you all remember the Commodore 64. Just kidding, that's a little before your time, right? But like I got this computer, it was called 64 because it had 64K of RAM in it, which seemed like a lot back then, right? So I was coding already back then. And so that's what I did. I liked sports too. I played volleyball, I played squash. Pretty much any sport. I rode horses. Any sport that wasn't football, because all the other kids were playing football, and who wants to play the sport? Now, it's really the only sport in Denmark is football, so I didn't play that.
I'm curious to know, did you have any like-minded people around you in university? Did you have friends, or maybe your brother? Of course, I know about him, but...
So my brother and I went to school. He's 2 years older, but I kind of caught up, like he had some jobs. And so we started the university together. And he'd actually been the one who got me into computers in the first place. Of course, he's the older one, right? But like everyone, once we got to university, like everyone was into computers, and that's what I studied, right? Beforehand, maybe not so much in high school. There was, a few of us doing computer stuff on the side.
I'm asking that because one of the most common problems that we've noticed inside our community with Hustlers is that most of the tech builders are struggling to find the right co-founder. That's probably because as engineers, we are more introverts and we're struggling to communicate and pitch ourselves. And also the business guys are struggling to find those nerds. So tell us more about your friends, your team.
Yeah. So look, all the things I've done, my co-founder has been either my brother or my wife. And so I struggle with that too. And by the way, it's super important to get the right co-founder. So now, you probably know that now I'm an investor, right? So I get to see quite a lot of startups, and often they fail because the co-founders are mismatched. And in fact, my best performing investment is Canva. Do you guys know Canva in Australia? Thank you. Now we're about. The founders, so 2 of the 3 founders are married. I mean, they were boyfriend, girlfriend when they started, right? Now they got married, had a kid, but often I see things fail because of co-founder issues. And not always like big dramatic and people split up and there's even lawsuits, although I've seen that more than once too, right? But just that the co-founders are mismatched in terms of their vision. You don't have the same vision. And it's super hard it's hard already to be a startup, right? But if the 2 co-founders or 3 co-founders are not pulling in the same direction, that never works, right? And you have to, just the other day, I think it was, actually you might come speak at Panathenia, one of the people that run Project Europe, was like, you should definitely make sure you can go on like a stressful vacation with someone before you become a co-founder. Actually, another thing, I don't know if you guys know this thing, there's this crazy thing in Boston called PROD, P-R-O-D. It's like, I shouldn't say, but almost like a cult-like organization, secret, right? Like you can't apply, they will find you kind of thing. But it's like, the smartest computer geeks at MIT and I think Stanford too. And they do these things where they go to some place, they were actually here in Athens.
What is an uncomfortable place? Uncomfortable place to meet someone?
Ammonia Square? Yeah. Just kidding, no, but they actually stayed, in a slightly rundown part of town, and one of them got mugged, kind of thing. And they chose that deliberately, and then they put these crazy challenges on, like they had to together like traverse the original marathon route. You can find out where it was, and then I think they walked in. But I think they put themselves these crazy challenges, like they wanted to try and get in a jet fighter with the Greek prime minister. I don't know if they succeeded, but they generally tried, right? And by trying to do these outsized challenges together, they find the right co-founders, and then they go off and they start like Cursor. Do you guys know Cursor? I'm not an investor either, which is a bummer, but Cursor was like started by people that came out of this group, PROD, right? And so I think finding places like that where there's, like I like to think of them as places where it's normal to be crazy. Like it's normal to want to change the world. It's normal to want to build companies, build things, create crazy stuff. And Panathenia, like, the office is like that. Like suddenly you're in an environment where everyone is crazy.
So I get that you have to be crazy enough that you can change the world, but tell us more about your team. What were the specific traits and characteristics that you had? Because probably since you were an engineer, probably an engineer in the audience wants to find some specific traits.
You mean the Google Maps?
Yes.
When we started, it was just my brother, right? So it started actually, because we were working for a different startup, was now a startup. It was a professor at school, had started a company. I was the first engineer he hired, and then I brought my brother over from Denmark. We're now in California. We raised a ton of money, like $40 million, spent it all, never actually, unfortunately, built a product that worked. Although we had crazy cool core technology, we just didn't have the business sense to turn that into a product that worked, and then the market crashed. You guys know about this? The dot-com bubble, massive crash in like 2000 or something. Like the NASDAQ lost 80% of its value. Across 2 years, it just down, crazy. And it was in that environment. My brother and I both got laid off. That startup died. And then the two of us, it was his idea. It was like, Lars, let's work on maps. And it was like, okay, let's work on maps. So we started working on maps. It was just the two of us, hacking away, building this thing, which is really for ourselves, to be honest. I don't know, all the people that try to lead me backstage could tell I have zero sense of direction. Like I get lost in my own apartment and it's not that big, and in particular when I need the bathroom. And that's why we're building maps. And we only just like added 2 more guys, and they're honestly at the time the only ones crazy enough to join us.
Crazy enough, what does that mean?
Well, so I mean, it can mean different things at different times. At this particular time, we couldn't raise money because all the investors had disappeared and we were completely unknown, but also maps back then. Everyone thought it was just not worth working on because no one had made any money from maps. Like there were maps on the internet and everyone used a map site, but all the map sites were losing money. And they're all the same, right? Then we came with something that was arguably much better. Like no one argued about that. You know, our demo very quickly was just like much better than what was out there. But most people are like, yeah, but who cares? No one makes money from maps. And so in that case, I was finding these two guys and they happened to be in Sydney, Australia. We flew to Australia and like set up an office and one of those guys, and Noel Gordon is his name, Stephen Ma, in a spare bedroom and just hacked away there, right? And so, you know, we just like ignored this thing that everyone was telling us that no one's gonna care, because we cared.
I had a conversation yesterday with my best friend Tassos, and we were saying that Australia is a pretty beautiful place that you can go for vacation. But I'm pretty sure that you guys went there to lock in. There was no vacation. So can you, if we try to close our eyes and get back to those very, very early days of Google Maps, when you relocated to Australia to build this application, can you take us on an average day? How does it look like?
Work and coffee. Yeah, Australia is beautiful, like effort. And it was actually when we moved there, a lot of our kind of Silicon Valley friends, mentors, whatever, they were like, guys, don't go to Australia.
You must be crazy.
Yeah, don't go to, but not that kind of crazy. More they like, you're gonna destroy your career if you go to Australia, because Australia is beaches, beer, barbecue, bikinis, right? And no one works there. We just have a good time. And then we went, and this was not our experience, and not just with the four of us, right? But it ended up when we sold to Google, that became the beginning of Google's engineering office. And we hired the best engineers this room. People work crazy hard there, even though it is indeed a beautiful country and so on. I mean, what happens in Athens, honestly, is Greece has that problem too. It's just like both countries have huge tourism industries. And those tourism industries use all their money to portray the country as a country of leisure. And then that kind of gets stuck in everyone's mind, right? But you actually find some of the hungriest people in places like that. And you get to occasionally go to the beach and hack away on the beach.
So what should someone expect starting a company here in Athens? How was the process in Australia? I mean, you had a small place, I guess. You both worked in the same space with an open environment from morning until the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, look, we set up in a friend's spare bedroom. We bought like the cheapest components and like assembled our own computers. You don't quite have to do that anymore, right? But like we tried to be like the scrappiest. We did a lot of work in coffee shop. This is true story. We found a coffee shop where they trained baristas, right? And so there was these guys making coffee all day to learn, and then we got those coffees for free. Yeah, because there was a training shop for baristas, right? This is great. I'd have never overcome my caffeine addiction since then, but you know, we did stuff like that, and we were just very, very low budget, but we never raised any money. This is why we sold to Google before we even launched, right? But we had managed to survive a year and a half with 4 people on the team without raising a single dollar of funding, and we got almost to the point where we were ready to launch. We just couldn't find enough money to buy the servers, and in our case, license the data that we needed to launch a map site. We did the whole development with 1 square mile of mapping data. Beautiful square mile of mapping data.
I think right now we have a very good understanding of your team and the very early days, and it's time to face the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is that you managed to show your company in Google, and based on my latest ChatGPT research, I found out that Google has acquired around 260 companies, latest version. That's crazy, but none of them, or maybe very few of them, have the following effect. How many of you have used Google Maps in your life? Lars, that's crazy. Let's applaud for Claude. That's crazy. Having 2 billion active users every single month is insane. I'm very curious to know, how did it feel back then, and how does it feel now that you're in Athens and you see that everyone around you is using this application?
I mean, look, it's an intense source of pride for me. Like I like to joke that pretty much anywhere I go in the world, I will meet someone who's gotten lost because of Google Docs. Just a joke, but also true. But look, it's an intense source of pride, and I still pinch myself. Like, you know, there's 25 years ago that we launched. I still pinch myself that this even happened. Like, and when I go through this story of how it happened, there were so many times where it could have and maybe should have failed, and somehow it didn't, and suddenly we were working at Google. This is it, like we sold it like 2004, right when Google went public, which was also crazy, right? So like they took the time to buy this company with 4 engineers and a prototype and some patent applications, I should say. They took the time to do that literally when they were going public, right? And then we spent maybe 6 months changing our maps, which is called Where To Technologies, where the 2 was the number, pretty clever. And we turned it into Google Maps, right? And then when we launched, and this is kind of cheating, right? Because when you're a startup, you don't get to launch with a Google logo on your product, right? And Google was, 2,000 people at the time, which felt huge to me. I think they're like 200,000 now or 300,000 now, I don't know. But even back then, the attention to Google was so intense. Like, we tried this thing, we were going to launch on this day, right? But we thought, we'll make it live on maps.google.com the day before, so we do an end-to-end test, because who would know? We weren't going to tell anyone. And we're going to like launch it the next day by a blog post, a press release or whatever. But about 10 minutes after we made it live, the night before, someone blogged about it. Google has launched a website, and 1,000 blogs. And so even before we launched it, it like blew up, because it turned out that Google had such attention that someone, a blogger, had guessed that sooner or later, Google is going to launch a map site. Because all the big players had a map site, and it's probably going to be maps.google.com. So you had a robot pinging maps.google.com, right? And that night, that robot went boing, and they blogged about it. It was that crazy.
What were your expectations, though, before launching and after the first week? Because I'm pretty sure that you didn't expect this traffic and this amount of people joining.
Yeah, I mean, we told everyone that this would happen. And still, it was quite surprising. Like the next day when we then launched it, the traffic went so high that Google Maps almost killed Google Search that day. Because like Google Search, there's a lot of computers, but not a lot of bandwidth to put those 10 blue links through, right? But Google Maps was sending all of these pictures of maps. And so we ate up all the bandwidth. And we almost, like there was this guy, Urs, with this hand hovering over the red kill Google Maps before it killed Google Search button, and he almost pressed it, but we survived. And of course, like that traffic back then, I think with like 14 million people, compared to the 2 billion that use it now, it's tiny number. But for a first launch, it was just insane. And it felt surreal that this was happening.
I think we have a great momentum from your career and the early days of Google Maps. And I think it's the perfect moment to switch to the Greek ecosystem, because you've been living in Athens for the past few years, and you are actively trying to help the ecosystem grow. What are the signals that you see Athens can go global and not just local?
Yeah, good question. So yes, again, a bunch of people are like, Athens?
Yeah, what?
Yeah, why are you going to Athens? And look, I think actually it's quite similar to where Sydney was at as an ecosystem. Like when I went to Sydney, for a host of like personal reasons, as well as the fact that the only 2 other engineers we could find happened to live in Sydney. And I worked with, when we launched Google Maps back then, we got about a bunch of attention, right? So we were suddenly in front of press in Australia. And we were the Silicon Valley guys, right? Except we were actually from Denmark, but whatever. And the question I got again and again from the Australians was, do you think it's possible to build an important startup from this far away from Silicon Valley? And of course I said, yeah, let's just do it. Just like I will tell you where the coffee shop is, where you can get free coffee, just do it. And it turned out that the first decacorn in Australia had been founded already. It was Atlassian. It just hadn't really taken off yet. But then Atlassian became a decacorn. I think at the height of it, there were like 70 billion, right? And then the Canva, which I was lucky enough to invest in, then also did, right? Now, nobody in Australia asks that question. Right now, the question isn't, is it possible? The question is, who's next? Who's next, and can I get my money in? But hey, and we're just 1 second, like pacing, that Greece is at that place now, that the first decacorn, like the first industry disrupting, world-changing startup has probably been started. It just hasn't quite made it that big yet. I hope it happens to be in my portfolio. Thank you. Because I think the thing, like in Australia, the thing that's holding back Greece a little bit is just a lack of confidence. Like the skills are here, the talent are here, everything is here, except there's too much, is it possible, right? And when too many people worry, is it possible, not everyone tries who really should try. Right, but once that first company does it, and the second company, everyone's going to be like, "Oh, well, it is possible here, right?" So let's go, and you can see that in Stockholm. They're just a little bit ahead, right? But there was also from a small country like Sweden, but then Spotify, right, and then Klarna, and now everyone is like Legora, Lovable. Everyone is just like, "Who's next? Who's next? Who's next?" By the way, when you come to Philoxenia, you should apply. There's a hackathon on Thursday. You gotta apply. I think they're still like looking at applications, and it's a fund called Florent. It's my fund, but they're doing it with the AI Society from the KTH school in Sweden, where all of the top Swedish AI talent, like Anton, they're all coming out of there. KTH, it means the Royal Technical Institute in Swedish, and they're doing the hackathon together. So you gotta apply.
But since we're discussing about Philoxenia, I'm pretty sure that most of the people here know. But what's the bigger picture? What's the mission? How is it gonna grow in the next few years? What is your goal with Philoxenia?
Yeah. So look, I have no doubt in my mind that Philoxenia is gonna become the world's top festival of innovation. Like, this is the inevitability. And it's happening faster than even I thought it would happen. That's rare. But it's just like an insane project. And if you look at the Greek startup ecosystem, it's still one of the smallest of a capital city in Europe. It is going super fast though. And I'll tell you more about the signals, because there's more to that story. But think about this for a second. When it comes to hospitality and experience, Greece is top, and it's both because there's tourism industry, the capacity, and there's the industrial strength to do that. Like, Greece is one of the few countries in the world that welcomes more visitors every year than there are citizens here, and by huge, like almost a factor of 4. But there's something else to it, that it's in the culture, like that hospitality is deeply ingrained in the Greek culture, right? And you could tell. Were you guys at Philoxenia last year? I can't actually see you, but it was just insane, right? And even though there was just like a team of 5 22-year-olds that built this thing in just 5 months out of nothing, and more than 3,000 people came from 40 different countries. The lineup of speakers was unheard of for a first-year event, and of course it's because all of the Greek ecosystem ganged up to find the best foreign friends. Like, I was actually right here in this room with the founders of Gamba, who beamed into this funky 3D box from Australia. Anyway, it was incredible. And I tell you, I've traveled around the world I still wear my wristband. I promised the team I'll make this a tattoo, but only when they settle on the typeface, which is the third attempt already. Anyway, so I have traveled literally from Los Angeles to Bhutan, and the storyline just blows people's mind that Greece is reimagining this ancient festival, the original startup conference, I call it, which, by the way, no one has heard about outside of Greece. I had not heard about it until I heard about it. But everyone immediately sees the parallel with the Olympic Games, right? That the biggest sporting festival in the world by far is a modern version of an ancient Greek festival. So of course.
Of course, it has to be here.
Right, of course. Right. And then the next thing is that it's built by a nonprofit that's run by Greek students. Really, that's amazing. And that it's in springtime Athens. Like, I have not met from Los Angeles to Bhutan. Everyone is like, where can I sign up? And can you give me a passport as well? I mean, it's crazy, right? And we think, like, I'll give you an example. So Slush in Finland, which, by the way, has been a huge source of not just inspiration, but the Finnish are incredibly generous, sharing all their learnings. Like, in our organization, there's a mirror image of the organization that built Slush in Finland. The first year at Slush, it was 300 Finnish people in a movie theater. First year of Philoxenia, 3,100 people, 44 different countries, 35 different venues, internationally crazy. And now, it's going to grow to 10,000, we think, this year. It's just great. So in 5 years, Philoxenia, it's going to be probably a week long, 10-day long. 100,000 people are going to come to Athens for this. It's not one thing, it's a collection of things. And the startup part of it will be 10 to 20,000 people, but there'll be a film festival, movie festival, theater, poetry, sports, everything.
One thing I noticed is that as Greeks, we're not united. And Philoxenia is one of the very few occasions that we can all form our forces and build something very big, because we're all building for the same ecosystem, for the startup ecosystem. We want to see people from the audience build the next unicorn startups. And the only way to achieve it is by uniting. That's the only way.
Yeah, no, so that's true. Nobody is united. I mean, like, Greece is not worried that we should go to America if you want to see a lack of unity, right? But yes, this is true, that this project, and that's an amazing thing in itself, right? And I think in part it's because, look, it's a nonprofit and it's run by students and new grants. Everyone can back that up, even people that might be rivals in their day-to-day life or competitors, right? We can all back the same thing, which is amazing.
But one thing that really troubles me is the thing that I'm pretty sure that most of the students in the audience have seen our Hustle Hours podcasts. They're probably going to be volunteers or attendees at Philoxenia. They are here today, which means that they are already doing the extra mile. But what it really takes is to build startups. And one of my favorite quotes is that the purpose of knowledge is action. The purpose of knowledge is action. How are we planning to build more startups and not just watch podcasts, apply to events, and see speeches? What do you think?
I mean, look, this is at the core of the question, right? And when you're a student, it's like sometimes some young person will come and say, hey, what should I build? And my answer is, just build something. Like literally just build something and keep building stuff. And in fact, if you're students, don't tell your teachers I said this, but build something that's not what your teachers ask you to do, right? Build something, whatever. And if you look at any field of human endeavor, if you ask the top people, Jerry Seinfeld, the billionaire comedian, right? What's your secret? I write a joke every day. Every day of my life, I write jokes. I just keep writing. What's the redhead British musician?
Ed Sheeran?
Ed Sheeran, thank you. Ed Sheeran says the same thing. How does he write these incredible hits? And he's just like, because since I was a kid, every day I wrote songs, and in the beginning, they were terrible songs. And suddenly, after years of writing, I built something, I wrote something good. And it's the same with computers or companies. Build something and be consistent, like continue building. Don't worry about whether the first thing you build is going to be a hit or not a hit, because you will learn from it. You just keep building, keep building, keep building. And right. And if you're into building companies, which I'm guessing yours, and you're a ThinkBiz, right? Like, even try to build something small that had to, if you look at, LinkedIn, there's a lot of chatter on LinkedIn, right? But it's a common theme now that the people that end up being really successful entrepreneurs, like world-changing entrepreneurs, they typically have, sold lemonades as a kid or building on something that just so that they learned this idea of money in, money out. And actually, Melon Cliff, who built Canva, a $42 billion company, makes $4 billion a year, 300 million active users, crazy success, right? Their first thing was selling T-shirts, right? And then their next thing was to write software that allowed teachers in a school to make yearbooks. And then they built Canva.
I think it's the best place to close this live podcast. But first, I would like to, as we discussed on WhatsApp, Hustle House exists because me and my co-founder came 3 years ago, sitting on the stage and watching all those speeches. Also, Philoxenia exists because all of those founding members were part of ThinkBiz. So I think that ThinkBiz deserves the biggest respect, and we have to give a shout out and thank you so much for this conversation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. ThinkBiz is the best. You have to catch that. I don't know if you know this, but like Philoxenia would not exist without ThinkBiz. Like 8 out of 10 of our team members, including the CEO, came through ThinkBiz. So it's amazing.
Shout out ThinkBiz. Thank you.